And welcome everyone. Today is the first day of October 2024. Lots are going on around in the world. This is a Digital World Town Hall meeting. We have a live audience from around the globe, from Canada to Australia to New Zealand to touching on Mexico as well as Ethiopia. We have a new guest that we'll talk a little bit about here, and we're grateful for their attendance. Today we will focus on basically an update on any of the new types of technologies. And we've got and then general Q&A as well. And we've got Terrence, Elle, and Wally as far as moderators. And then for just a reminder, this is a private membership association. Some of the things we'll talk about may be forward-looking, so heads up. For those that are not aware, some of the stuff that we do around decentralization is because of secret combinations that like to centralize things. So the opposite of decentralize is centralize. And so these secret combinations basically come from different parts of the world. Maybe it's oil, maybe it's finance, maybe it's pharma, maybe it's media, maybe it's big tech. But they basically hide and then work with financial systems, monetary systems, governments, project finance, to basically take over and control, centralized control of the systems. That's what we're seeing throughout humanity. And that's basically the problem that we're solving with decentralized systems. So thank you for joining us. Everything about the digital world is all around decentralized systems. And it's really finding that nice balance right in between being governed and govern oneself as well. So instead of having government, the individual can actually have the freedom to govern themselves. And to do it, it really is simple. People get their own encryption keys that links with their physical body, either their face or their finger, depending on their level of security and comfort, which is actually going to even improve in the future. And then they get their own keys and derived keys. This slide may look like a lot, but it really is the important heart and details of why it's not just blockchain, but it is key management that are derived keys around the future technologies of blockchain. That's the basis for what it is. So we're grateful for those that have attended and joined us today. We're going to jump into just some crazy simple stuff. One of the things, today is the first day of October and the first day that the new leadership within the Mexican environment has actually taken hold. There's also some firsts on this beautiful day. I won't go into that right now. There's some crazy stuff out there in the world. People are pretty aware of it. You know, we have massive deaths. I shouldn't say crazy within the deaths within the weather. There's also a couple of wars going on in the world right now. There are infrastructure on communication that is being taken down in certain networks and certain systems that are actually being bought. That's another thing where the FCC has actually approved multiple towers within the Soros environment. There's explosions of different chlorine factories, or at least one. And then you've also got the massive flooding, not just in Tennessee, but North Carolina, it was originally thought that it was going to hit within the Florida environment, but a lot of devastation there. And then a lot of thoughts behind the scenes of what that is actually looking like and how it's tying to different resources, whether they're lithium ion phosphate resources or whether they're within assets that are also, I believe they actually, let me see if I can find this particular one. There was a particular one that I think is really meaningful on this particular topic. That's not it. But the ability for resources to be seized in an interesting way. And some people think, well, how can the weather tie to what's going on out there in the world? And how is it that it always happens right around the election time frame? And if people are paying attention, there absolutely is the ability to control and manipulate the weather. It's not like they haven't figured out how to forecast things and how highs and lows and different things work, but you can actually use different types of technologies to warm up different areas. And when you do it in a certain way at a certain altitude, it causes things. For instance, there's 12, 13 different cyclones that are currently starting to happen, or hurricanes, depending on what sphere of the world you're in. One of the other things that's a big thing is, and it's actually not material there, there's a banking environment. Today is the first day of it. Let's see if I've got this one here, where you basically have the Federal Reserve Board announces individual capital requirements for large banks takes effect today, which I believe is just continued positioning around the new financial system, which will be cryptographically based. The question is, will that be centralized or decentralized? Some of the other things that are happening today, this actually marks the first day of what's happening within the ports. So a lot of the ports on the East Coast, on the West Coast, and basically are just at a standstill. So supply chain in the United States of America, as well as it touches around the rest of the world, there is some strikes that are happening today. It's been a long time since that's actually been realized. And a lot of it is based not just around money, but it's based around automation. So people don't want to be commoditized and taken out. And some folks would argue against or for that, but those are some of the things that we're seeing. A lot of moving parts out there. I would still net it out to, it's basically just these simple things: good versus evil with secret combinations. And some people call it, two-party systems with Democrat or Republicans, or, and that's not what, we're not here to take a political stance, but what we are here to do is to focus on how decentralized systems can actually help enable the future around the individual owning and governing their own identity and selves. And so the technologies that we talk about here are very key. Some of the other things that are coming off of, for those that are not aware, or if we look back on this in the future, there's some interesting things that are happening as far as a selection process or election process. I think those are two very different words, but we're October 1st. So we're literally, 36 days away from that process actually happening. And every day, I think you're seeing some things that are actually becoming more and more transparent. I think it's important to have a plan based around what's happened in the past, where honesty was not really realized and folks were selected. That's why there's a selection versus election process here. For those that were not with us last week, we actually took the system that we spent over 15 years and almost $30 million building, the American Republic system, and we actually donated it as a gift to the Trump family. So there's a very big opportunity there for them if they want to actually open up and learn and see what it's all about. So we want to explore the potentials within the digital world, connecting to the world liberty financial environment, which we'll see a lot more about in the future. So with that being said, there are different environments. Some of them sovereign based, some of them historical based, some of them futuristic based, that will basically leverage these new types of systems for the future. So with that being said, those are some of the real material advancements. The biggest one is just continuing to mature the American Republic, which focuses on identity for the future. That's decentralized with all the things we've been talking about, as well as health, as well as voting and finance, or a whole new financial system, as well as businesses or organization creation that includes trusts or special purpose vehicles, and then exchanges, which tie to currencies, equities, and commodities, and then a whole new currency system that basically is in real time with no fees and no governments and no banks. And then a dispute management system and land management system. So these are all systems that tie to this new, not just American Republic, but also some of the other systems that are out there in the world. So with that being said, there's also a lot of issues that we've seen this last week. Systems that are basically being perfected, and we're understanding and learning more and growing. So those are some of the things that are going on. We have someone with us who actually is from Nigeria. This gentleman I've worked with for, I don't know, how long has it been, Mike? 7 years, maybe 8 years, originally in the ClearOS server world with Clear Center. We did some big partnerships with Hewlett Packard worldwide, and what was the number one server manufacturer in the world, and the number two server manufacturer in the world was actually Dell. And so he was one of the division heads and chief technology officer for Dell. And so we're grateful for him joining us. And this morning, he actually explained to me this beautiful kingdom that I didn't even know about, which is basically over kind of in the Indian Ocean area. And a part of it today is actually a part of Nigeria. So we'll go ahead and introduce Michael.
Ethiopia, sorry.
Ethiopia, sorry. And so he's actually got massive roots there, and just grateful to call him brother and friend and to have him join us. This is his first Digital World Town Hall meeting. I don't know that we'll have a council side of it, but there's also the ability to reserve having councils if there's questions where we can come together and have everybody have a voice and vote. But we're grateful for him to be able to join us today. And he's been watching us over the years. And, this is actually his first interaction within joining this environment. But maybe you could just give us your perspective of what you see from the outside before you get in the inside, so to speak. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So first of all, Michael, thank you so much for the invite. I'm blessed and honored. You mentioned, we worked together. Yeah, it goes back to 2016 when I was with HP Hewlett Packard. And ever since we kept in touch, I moved into the different side of the world, which is Dell Technologies. And so since you've been working with HP, I kept a little bit of my distance just to be fair. I had some exposure to the innovation you have and some of the work that has been done at HP. Almost 4 or 5 months ago, I decided to take a leave of absence to really reflect back on what my next chapter would be in this amazing journey. I'm blessed. I left home when I was 17 years old. In 1985 actually, I met John Paul II in Italy and gave him a personal gift my dad gave me. And I never forget his guidance. He said, I pray for you. I pray for your family. I pray for your country. I don't know, some of you that are older a little bit, 1984, 85, it was the worst time in Ethiopian history with the famine and a lot of the things that have been happening in the world. From war to famine, the country was devastated. And the reason I mentioned that is because Ethiopia had a kind of such a pride in its history, going back to the different kingdoms, and Aksumite kingdom is one of them, which Michael was alluding to earlier. And that's where the linkage comes in with the original Ethiopian culture with the Middle East, Israel primarily, and how Amharic, the Ethiopian national language, which is a Semitic language, is tied to Hebrew and Arabic. And what's dividing them was that the Red Sea, which currently we see it as on the news from left, right, up and down. But the pilgrimage from Israel, they crossed the Sinai Peninsula. At that time, obviously, there was no Suez Canal, and they followed the Nile River south all the way to Ethiopia, and the place called Gondar, which is on the northern eastern part of Ethiopia, became the residence for them, and they were called Falasha. Falasha means an Ethiopian immigrant. And so that's the original Jews that they were escaping a lot of other things, and they came to Ethiopia, and that's their home. It's that middle Lake Tana, where the ocean, in the lake is, yeah. So anyways, that's a long story. Giving you this, I felt I was blessed. I left home during the Civil War. Went to Canada, went to Italy. The Catholic Church sponsored me to go to Canada. Did my 2 years of high school. Unfortunately, Canada has 13 years of high school, at least in Ontario. So I was in London, Ontario, and graduated from the University of Western Ontario with a double degree computer science and electrical engineering. Worked in telecom, and that became my passion. I got to learn the communication fabric, the telecom infrastructure end to end, from cables all the way to software stacks. And so I've been in that business now since 1990 after I graduated. In 1998, I did my master's in MBA at George Washington University. Went to Silicon Valley, started a couple of companies with some friends. One of them was a little bit successful, which means we didn't go bankrupt. Learned a lot, but it's not about the money or anything else, but learning lessons and improving self. And in that journey, I met Michael, and I loved Salt Lake City. So in fact, to make it a point, my two boys, Samuel is 14 now, and Thomas is 11. When they wanted to go to winter, we went to Salt Lake City and saw Michael as well. That was, I think, 2019 or 2020, before the COVID. Long story short, now, the Ethiopian idea is really, what can I give back? I've earned a lot. I'm blessed. A lot of people show me what good looks like. Learn from that, did my best to improve myself and my family, and I'm very happy now. I live in South Lake, Texas, one of the best school districts for my boys. That's the best gift I could ever give them, is really give them the opportunity to have a good education, and I'm blessed with that. So about 6-7 months ago, a little bit the personal story happened on my side. I was playing basketball with my two boys, and I wanted to be Michael Jordan, so I landed on the wrong side of the field. I had a little bit of a broken ankle. That taught me how life is precious. Simple things that we take them for granted. Just walking, walking the stairs, taking a shower, all of those things. For about a month, I was not able to do that. I needed to be assisted. That gave me that reminded me what John Paul II told me when I was 17 years old. I pray for you. I pray for your family. I pray for your country. So in that process, I was blessed to take care of myself and my family, and they're well taken care of. We live in the United States, one of the best places on the planet Earth, with all the difficulties and opinions and difficulties we have in politics and everything else. People are really amazing. This is the place I wouldn't ever trade to anything else. Now the third angle came. I said, I pray for your country, and then I have my roots. My dad passed away about 5 years ago, but he left a legacy. So I did a lot of work as chairman of the board for the family trust to build a sustainable business where my brothers and sisters are running it successfully. About a year ago, my middle brother, Tommy, he grew up with me in the US. He went back. He's an American citizen like me. He went back and started a manufacturing business, and he asked me to assist him within that process. Long story short, I was contacted by the Prime Minister's office in Ethiopia, Dr. Abiy. Based on some of the work I have done, I never promoted myself, but they've discovered that I've some connections to the biggest introduction of the second telecom company in Ethiopia, Safaricom, which is a Vodafone subsidiary, moved into Ethiopia, and I was one of the architects of the network, which currently has 34 million subscribers. And somehow my name trickled into that process, and I got requested if I could be of advising or at least contributing to the digital transformation of what the country has started. Long story short, again, the Prime Minister's office issued an amazing paper. It's about 100 pages of a digital transformation blueprint. What would it take in terms of the foundation of that blueprint, and what the steps should be to improve primarily the infrastructure, that is really to simplify it, a mobile device and a server. That's how simple this is, and how that could be interconnected using wireless, reliable communication, secure communication, to provide business to business, business to government, government to consumer, or citizen services, starting with telemedicine and in a number of other areas. So I looked at it, and I always keep in touch with Michael and what he's doing behind the scene, and with ClearOS and all of the work he has done. And when I saw on YouTube the recording of this session, I think maybe a month and a half ago, I didn't tell Michael, but I said, let me go to Ethiopia and let me show them that YouTube to some of the key advisors of the Prime Minister's office. And I went there. I mentioned earlier to Becca, Ethiopian New Year was the 11th of September. I missed it because I had my son's school. That's my the biggest priority, so I stayed. But after Ethiopian New Year, which is the 11th of September, there's something called Meskel, which goes back to the Aksum kingdom and some of the original Ethiopians, how they celebrate the passing of the season. Basically, Ethiopia has a reverse weather. When it's summer in the northern hemisphere, it's actually winter there. because of the rain season. And in September is really now the beginning of spring, and then we're gonna have summer coming up. We're in our northern hemisphere because winter and on. So this festival is for the Mescal, and I'll send you guys the YouTube of the live that has been done. Anyway, I went there to celebrate with my family. My mom, since my dad passed away, I'm the oldest in the family. I make sure that every year I go there with her to celebrate, and we have an excellent timing. During that time, I told them what Michael and you guys are doing with Digital World, and the interest is huge. So let me leave it there. Michael, I know I took a lot of time. I just want to give the perspective of how grateful I am to be here, and the world looks beautiful. I think you guys are doing amazing work, and I'll be more than happy and privileged to partner and expand that work to Ethiopia and assist them in their own digital transformation as well. So let me pause there. I said a lot.
I can't express how excited I am to have you engage. And I know he didn't go into a lot of the depths of some of the things that he's done, especially in the telecom world. There's not a lot of people that have the depth and life experience and education and then implementation within some of the top companies and parts of the world and companies in the world as Michael. And so when a country, says, hey, we're interested in one of our own to actually build this, it's kind of like Mr. Green on the call. It's like, with Mexico, it's not a matter of money. It's not a matter, it's a driver and a purpose and something that we can dedicate our lives to helping future generations to actually come up with a solution and be a part of the positive stuff instead of all of this negative stuff that you start seeing, all of this, like these are all just crazy things that are going on right now. And I believe that it's only going to get crazier until the elections come. And then regardless of whoever is selected here, whichever person, and I think we need to plan for the worst is really the right thing to do. Because if the best thing happens and, there's certain people that are actually accountable and care, and yeah, there may be some different nuances, but ultimately we already have game film on one of them. And again, I don't want this to be a political conversation, but we really are in the last month before a selection is made here, one way or the other, which then will tie into some big things in the future in how systems actually get rolled out. One of the other things that's massive is this month, within about 9 days, we're going to be able to start seeing some of these different countries in how they actually roll out some of the technology. And what's beautiful is you're going to see these different countries, because this is years, this is even before COVID, all of these countries coming together and building systems and building standards, because a lot of these standards are all open source based. And so the code and infrastructure underneath it all ties to the same things. But what you're going to end up seeing is a competitive comparison like this that's literally going to link a lot of these different technologies together in a very disruptive way. So you're going to see stuff like, I'm going to try and turn this a different color so you can see it a little bit better. So you're going to see this particular code base, as well as this in an environment where the linkages can actually become very viable and then link into other systems. Maybe it ties into the Ethereum environment. Maybe it ties into the Bitcoin environment. But it all basically links within an environment that the whole world can start using standards and communicating with one system, with one encryption key. And that's why these derived keys, when we talk about what the digital world is all about, that's why this stuff is so important. So the ability to have a set of keys that links to a human that creates a life-based app, Hawaiian life, Tuvalu life, Fiji life, Samoa life, American life, you name it. All these different life apps that then use a local currency that can be derived based upon a real world asset system that then can actually have derived keys for what each of us do. So a lot of you may just be glazing over when we talk about stuff like that, but those are basically the general updates. So it's primarily just around the things that are happening within society. There's some fun stuff around satellite. but I don't have anything to physically show you this week, but we will next week. So how the satellite systems, for instance, if you haven't been paying attention, Verizon, which is one of 3 networks in America, probably the most governmental focused standards tightest network, has been down and out in multiple pockets. But you're also seeing satellite-based infrastructure with certain phones starting to pick up. So you're seeing massive infrastructure with some of these hurricanes, which I believe the hurricanes have been affected by design. I mean, you don't see, the timing is so key, the location is so key, and could we actually say that people are doing this to other people? I hope that humanity would be more loving than that and wouldn't do such a thing. But I personally really believe that the weather is being manipulated, period. And that's just how it is. So with that being said, we have hundreds of people that are dead so far just within this last hurricane. And I believe it could get into many hundreds, hopefully not thousands. But from what I'm being told, this is 10 times worse than Katrina. And I remember my foster dad, who's now in Africa, he's actually on the Ivory Coast on the other side of Africa. He was actually part of the first crew that went in to actually find the dead bodies and help to be able to, it wasn't a saving mission, it was just a recovery mission. So many, many bodies, as well as hospitals. So you had hospitals where people were in that had to be left there, and then power systems that went off, and just crazy catastrophe. But from what we're seeing now, this could literally be one of the biggest issues that we've seen, at least in the last, well, I don't know as far as storms go, but many, many years. And it's interesting to see the current supposed selected leadership in their involvement and commitment to actually help make this right versus other folks. I saw a picture of Trump in the water today. I don't know if it's just made up or not, but it'll be interesting to see how people take care of one another and support one another, and the noise and chaos that comes from it, but how we could actually use systems that could actually help us to be able to take accountability with our own environments. For instance, one of the things that we're hearing is Biden is specifically saying, we're going to have to help one another because there's nothing else that's going to help us. The government's not going to be there. The money's not going to be there, which is, they're seeing a lot of money flow into other parts of the world, which it ties right back to this slide here. It really does. It's all about these secret combinations and then taking over different environments. So how do they work together to be able to then use project finance, like with the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank or the Reserve Banks? And how do they basically issue more money? And then where does that money go? It's literally a laundering system for these secret combinations. As sad as that sounds, that's basically what it is. So when the new financial system lights up, you're going to see a massive pull between decentralized technologies, which is what the systems are going to be built on, and cryptographic keys. But the goal is to make sure that these decentralized technologies stay decentralized and they don't get centralized. So we see a lot of centralizing decentralized technologies, and the goal is to make it so that doesn't happen. So any questions or thoughts or feedback or observations over this last week? Again, October 1st, 2024. It's a special day. Phoenix? Others, thoughts, feedback?
The one thing that I have a special place in my heart for Tennessee, North Carolina, the southern states, southern eastern states, and pretty much everywhere in the world, but part of my heart is in there. And I don't know, Michael, if you remember or not, but I flew down to Puerto Rico to help out with the Hurricane Fiona efforts. I went to ground zero. I was on the roof. I was picking up the trash everywhere. But then, so that's ARC Aid, which is another division of my company I started based off of Hurricane Fiona, and seeing that, I'm sorry, but FEMA kept promising to come down. Biden flew down for a few minutes and flew out FEMA never came down. And these people had been going months by that time with no food, no fresh water. So we were doing soup kitchens. I worked with PRI, I love you. Chin name runs that. So Arcade and us worked together. And, you know, I'm not like ego, but like, I'm proud to say that, you know, I don't rely on government funding for things. What I did was I was asked to write a request, like an order, to raise money for the people of Puerto Rico. Because when FEMA gets involved, they can't, you can't actually fix a house. You have to put a blue tarp on. You gotta do this. You can't do anything to really actually structurally fix a house because the FEMA won't then contribute. So I wrote up, I was requested to write up an executive document requesting funding. And I successfully was able to bring up over $250 million that went directly to the people, which that really, really needed it, because a lot of them at the time were still using the blue tarps that were ripped to shreds from Hurricane Maria. So now here we are at Hurricane Helen, which I assure you where I am right now, we're getting hit hard, but that's nothing compared to what is going on to, you know, throughout the Caribbean and up through Tennessee, which in North Carolina. So I went ahead today, was it yesterday? No, today. And no, it was yesterday, sorry. I spoke, I listened to, you know, a large group of individuals, mostly ex-military first responders, which is what I wanted to talk to you about, Michael, also about the first responder phones and the new satellite phones, because my teams are doing the best that they can do. But I did call in special requests for extra troops and admirals that are now since retired, that I know quite well, really awesome people that I love. And we've gotten more support through Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, and the surrounding areas. So I just want someone out there to know that, you know, I don't really pop up very often. I go like unheard of, unsung, pop up here and there, but I'm working on it really well, as hard as I can, on top of everything else, you know, that I deal with. So I just wanted to say I'm working on it, and I've got a lot of amazing responses. So that's it.
Thank you for all that you did. $250 million is that's a real drop in the bucket. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing, you know, what happens in the future. I don't know if back then they were manipulating weather, or if it was, I think those are some of the early days that they were working with the HARP stuff, but it'd be interesting to really know the truth, you know, maybe it'll come out in the future. Becca,
I'll
go
leave
ahead.
it at that.
Hey, Michael. Hi. I just have some comments to Michael. I think you and I have more in common than we might think about Ethiopia. Not only do I love Ethiopia, but I also have had a very long, successful career in telecommunications and infrastructure. So I have a broad range knowledge of also, you know, fiber optics, wireless technologies, new technologies as well. So it's very exciting to hear what you're doing with digital transformation. And I do believe wholeheartedly that it starts at the core level, and that education is not something that everyone knows about. So thank you for coming here today. I was so glad. I'm so happy to meet you. And I'm so glad that there's other people around that understand communications and infrastructure and how that plays a core part in what we are doing, because it's missing from our education system. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Just to add a little bit of it, just to close it, the concept we are promoting now, again, we have not gone through details yet, is really what we call it a digital services cloud. Basically what that means is, today we have clouds, and digital services clouds have to rely on the underlying basic principles of end user device, secure communication from that end user device to the target server where the actual services are being hosted, and ability to communicate and use that service despite the nature. And this, for what Phoenix was alluding to, North Carolina, devastating. I'm just watching the on TV, the not just the roads and the power, everything is gone, and folks do not have access. The radio towers are not there. And Michael was alluding something of the fact of the satellites, which before we become luxurious with the 4G and 5G, satellite communication in the 2G time for just basic messaging and basic the voice was the foundation through the Intelsat system. And hopefully now with Musk doing amazing innovation with Starlink and a lot of other things, we will have broadband connections through satellites. In case of, in this scenario, once you have the device and that digital ID identifying you, irrespective of where you are, you will be able to get your service because that device is able to communicate through the backend system. And that's where I'm focusing on how to bring that telecommunication system as the foundation, the way we take the internet for granted today. The internet is a distributed set of servers. The telecom system, unfortunately, is more fixed in terms of communication, especially with fiber. But hopefully, with satellite coming in, we can create all of that framework. But absolutely, that's my passion. 34 years now to the day I've spent writing my first software code on voice systems at the Northern Telecom in Canada, in Ottawa, and now a long way from there. But I appreciate it. Thank you for Becca for that comment. Are you in Australia now, if I may ask?
I'm in Australia, yes.
I'd love
yes.
it.
And just to touch on like the emergency side of things, when we do have emergencies here in Australia, we do look after the network here, and it's a very big job to take care of. A lot of the times we run out of gensets to put up on the towers. So especially if it's very, very remote. So recently we've run out of gensets in a certain area remote. I won't say what it is. The town has nothing. So this is what people don't understand about how when technology evolves, people have to evolve with it.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, people miss out. They miss out on connections. They miss out on food. They miss out on all these things. And this is why I love this space. So we can teach people about helping one another. So I'll just leave it like that.
It's neat to
Thank
see
you,
the
Michael.
similarities. Really neat to see the similarities between Michael and Becca. And you're right. Both of you work on core networking infrastructure at the protocol layer. And it's very interesting to see the new generation. So GSM is where the G is. And so you've got G1, G2, G3, G4, and now we're seeing G5. Some folks are talking about G6 and how it's going to tie and what it's going to do and how it links to different things. I won't get into it because it's crazy stuff. But we really have taken with the connection between the satellites, Starlink, and T-Mobile, which was prior to that, ended up originally going to Sprint and then VoiceStream back in the day, which is where the bands were actually gotten from. But you're right, Michael, it's basically just 2G. So we're linking in 2G satellite for simple communications. And, I know that I saw an announcement earlier today that they're doing their best to try and send Starlinks down there. And Starlink is really a massive leveling playing field so that new financial systems can actually evolve. And I know people may think, well, what's the linkage? But now you can actually be anywhere, anytime. For instance, we were in Vanuatu. My family and I were there for a month, and we went through 2 Category 5 cyclones. Now, I don't know if you went through what these cyclones were, or these hurricanes. Hurricanes, by the way, like Mike was talking about the Earth at different times, you know, they're just, one's a cyclone in a certain hemisphere and one's a hurricane in another. They turn the opposite ways. For instance, you know, down there in Australia or New Zealand, you know, the toilets flush opposite than what they do in Canada. They're just, it's amazing how this Earth works. But the point that I'm trying to drive at is we actually went and worked with deploying some of the digital world systems in the payments world within Vanuatu at one of the supermarkets. And they were like, why does this matter? Who cares? What's the big deal? Then the storms hit, the first Category 5 cyclone. Okay, and we're talking, everything was down. They were out of power for 3 months. Okay, now there's 83 islands, 81 languages, 83 islands, or the opposite. And they actually ran out of cash because they're a cash-based society. Because they didn't have any power to the ATMs, they couldn't get cash to the people. So even though there's goods in the stores, the people end up looting the stores or taking, and a lot of environments there, the looting is not to the same level that you'll see here because the volume of people is just not the difference, and there's nowhere for them to go on these islands. You don't do things that are wrong. You take care of one another. Community and accountability is a big deal. So it was very interesting to see how people could actually go and charge their cell phones and how the cellular networks could come up, which, by the way, you would love this. They didn't go and get approval to put them up. They just stuck them up and let people adopt them. So they literally, I think it was Digisat that actually did that. They started in the Caribbean and then they went to the Pacific with the same model. They don't go through all the politics. They just stick the towers up and let people start using it, and then let the politics figure it out with the certifications, which I thought was an interesting approach. But the point that I'm trying to articulate is people were actually able to do digital transactions when they didn't even have power. So they had cell phones and communication and the ability to transact in I don't know that I would call it a third world country. No, I probably would. In a very developing country. They had just taken their country back from they were dual occupied from the French and the British at the same time, kicked them out, took it back. And I was telling Michael earlier today that I actually believe that there's a connection, because in the Pacific, and this may sound really crazy, but if we look at a map, so in the Pacific, which again is about half of the Earth, like look at this thing. This is massive, right? So this is like half of the Earth. And you got Vanuatu, this little environment down here, all off of Fiji. And literally, you have Polynesian, Micronesian, and Melanesian. And inside of the middle of this is this Melanesian culture. And it's like, who are you? Where'd you come from? They're like, well, we've been here for 3,500 years. That's kind of the history. But we actually came from the King Solomon's ships as they were coming over to build. And you know where those came from? All back into this environment. So it's so neat to just see all of this coming together. And I sent Mike a couple of the different images of some of these folks down there, because we just have our heart within the Vanuatu environment. And Vanuatu, for those that are not aware, it's I wonder what the time is there right now, but they've been reaching out to us every single week. It's like, we need to get this going. We need to get this going. We just got new leadership here. And so there's massive desires. And in the Constitution of Vanuatu, which, by the way, I believe that is where the piggy bank originated from. They actually had pig tusks that they would give as dowries, and if you want to build a house or different things. So they were actually using these different assets from pig to basically use as gifts. But they literally have built into their constitution the word decentralization as a part of what they're actually going to be focused on. So I look forward to the day that Vanuatu and what we're looking at with Ethiopia actually comes together. Maybe there's something there, maybe there's not, but I can tell you that from the people's heart that I met down there, I see so many similarities. And maybe that's just because we all share the same earth. But Mike, were you going to say something?
No, I really appreciate you. You sent me the pictures. I was aware of them, and I'm going to do a lot more research.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that. Yeah.
So it's interesting to see also, like in Fiji, which is right there by Vanuatu, and I think also connected. Most of their towns are named after places in Africa too. So there's gotta be an element of connection there, but it's like everybody else says, it's one world, one earth. So Jen or Phoenix, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something, or anybody else want to mention something? There's not a lot of technical stuff. There's a lot of noise that's going on in the world before the elections, but Charles, hello, welcome. Danielle, it's good to see you nodding. Phoenix, did you want to say something?
No, I don't think I had my hand up. Maybe it flicked on. I don't know. My electronics have a mind of their own.
That's okay.
Speaking of Michael, just as recent as the last 3 days, my teams, and I have fairly decent sized teams, are requesting you and I discuss the satellite phones, and also Shillong and so forth. So that being said, the only thing I would say on, I've worked a lot with certain individuals on, especially that area in and around Fiji, and individuals that understand the Earth grid as well as ley lines. There's specific areas that appear and somewhat disappear, and some is for individuals' protections, and some is for people just not to know about. But I have been working on and off for years with individuals that that we both know, but don't talk to you much. But I would like to talk to you, as you know, where I still can only talk to you via my signal's still out.
It's okay.
So, but I would like to follow up on that whole the Pacific Union on many levels, as I'm also dealing with government officials on a daily basis in the location that that I am, and they're very much appreciative, on board, super excited, and I'll leave it there.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. This is a sneak peek at some of the stuff we're going to look at as far as the connectivity side of things. There's still a lot of dialogue and interactions that we're trying to complete and facilitate regarding the connection there. So, and most of it we can't even speculate or even dig into, but those are pieces of that we'll dig into. I'd like to call on Mr. Green and see if there's anything you'd like to report out on Mexico and the new leadership stepping in today, if there's anything that you observed or anything you want to go through, and then just kind of open it up for everybody else before we convene here. Charles, Danielle, if you want to say it, Susan. But Mr. Green, is there anything you want to go over?
Well, hello, everybody. It was just amazing to see all the Mexican people getting united all together, supporting one president. And I think it's something that I wish here in the States we can also make it happen, unite all the different people and make amends with all the indigenous tribes and people, nations, and all this kind of stuff, because that was one of the many very assertive things that this previous President AMLO did. He went with every indigenous nation, country, from inside Mexico City, and they make amends with everybody. Even though that it was just symbolic, most of it, but that get like the sense of unity, you know. And I think it's something that we can learn from that also here in the States.
Wouldn't that just be
Because of that,
wonderful?
Tell me.
Wouldn't that just be wonderful if we could realize some of the things that you're seeing down in Mexico with unity, even after, I mean, their elections, they had in 6 months, 20 assassinations, not attempted assassinations, full assassinations. Yet you have over 70% of the actual country in Mexico that's aligned with this president. And there's unity, there's oneness, there's caring about, like you say, the indigenous. Wouldn't that just be wonderful if we could fast forward 50 days from now and just have that in America? Let's just pray for that and put that out there. That would just be phenomenal. And then we'll plan for the worst, but we'll rejoice if that's not the case. So I love your perspective
Let me
there.
share to you guys like 10 seconds of the video.
Yeah, go for it.
Or what was? Let me just share my screen very quick. Share. Test screen. There you go.
Make
Can you see it
amends
now?
with the indigenous. Yeah, we got you. Make amends with the indigenous. Wouldn't that just be amazing?
Yeah.
I won't let you share. Here, I'll go ahead and play it from this because the audio is not coming through. Let's see if I can.
It doesn't matter. I just wanted to everybody to see the millions of people there in
Yeah, that's awesome.
the. That's the National Palace. That's the main cathedral in Mexico City, and the millions of people getting like today in the morning when she get elected. So that's the only thing that I wanted to share right now.
That's awesome.
Isn't
That's
it?
so awesome. We've got meetings tomorrow around Tulum and the pilot down in Mexico. So just to give you a heads up, if you want to join those, you're welcome to it. And, you know, just it's neat to see all the different people from all the different parts of the world. Charles, if you have anything to say, we'd love to hear your voice. We miss you. It's good to have you back. Bob, thanks for joining. Wally, Ray, Susan, always a pleasure. Looks like you got a lot of folks that are not citizens that'll be voting down there, as well as other parts of the world, but we'll see how that ends up. So there's Charles. Anything you want to share with us, Charles? You're still muted, but it's okay. There you go.
I'm not a smart guy. I'm just
Whatever.
learning every time I come on. But I can
Whatever.
come on, I can come on.
Well, it's good to see you and hear your voice. And we actually, I found out today that Auntie Vicky down there in Maui, where you're based, she actually met with Phil Lane down in not Guatemala, but Peru. And so there was a big connection
Oh, okay.
there. And we actually have on the 20th of this month. So again, this is October 1st, 2024. There's actually the Hopis from the Arizona area. Really, it's Hopi, they're Arizona land. They'll be coming over to Maui. So there's some beautiful things that may transpire there. And we're contemplating having Phil, we've reached out to him. We don't have confirmation yet to see if he could actually come and join us there as well and make those connections. There's also some happenings that are happening on the Hawaiian Kingdom side that I'd love to bring you up to speed on, or I don't know if you were in the last meeting on Saturday, but would love to have dialogue there.
No.
Yeah. So, and it ties to some of the stuff that you're doing with David and the writs process and all that fun stuff. So,
You know, the politics.
that's a good way to put it.
Craziness in politics.
That's a really good way to put it. Well, it's good to have you. Anything else you want to leave us with? Words of wisdom, prayers, anything?
Wisdom,
Yeah.
prayers always. But wisdom, nah, none of that. I guess I'm old enough that I'm supposed to be wise, but
Yeah.
ask my wife that. The only prayer I can think of is that God, give me the wisdom to not be an idiot in my speech, in my actions. I pray the same for everyone that's here, because we're all idiots at one time or another, even if we don't want to believe it.
Yeah. Amen to that.
So I just pray that for myself. Anybody that wants to receive that, I just don't want to be an idiot.
You know, they actually talk about that in scripture.
On my way to
about-
Japan at the end of the month. I'll be 68, man. I'm gonna be close to 70 this month. I'm like, son of a gun.
You know, the Hawaiian
I can't
bloodlines.
believe I made it this long.
Hey,
The stupidity that I've done in my life, I can't believe I've made it this long.
we went to a funeral of a gentleman today that was younger than you. So keep doing what you're doing and stay healthy and full of life, living a full life. I hope to see you soon here, bud. Any other thoughts or comments before we convene today?
Are you planning on coming over on the 20th with the Hopis?
Potentially. We'll see if it materializes. So,
All right.
Danielle,
It's interesting you said about Auntie Vicky because I have it on my heart to go reach out to her and just reach out to her, but
you know,
I know she was in Peru.
she's actually one state away from us. And this morning she said she might actually come and visit us here in Utah. So we may see her in the next couple days.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful.
All right, I'll zip it now.
Okay. Susan, Bob, Danielle, Ray, any other final comments before we wrap up or best wishes?
I just want to say prayers for everybody in North Carolina, Tennessee, everybody affected, and just prayers for everybody else, and just ready to watch the VP debate.
That's going to be good, isn't it?
So, yeah.
What time is that on? Do you know?
Right now, it's
supposed to be
starting right now.
Yep, right
Right
now.
now.
Okay. Danielle, do you want to wrap us up?
Yes, I do. Just be love.
Amen.
Every one of us.
Amen. Well,
Ditto.
yeah. It's nice to hear somebody say ditto. I always type it, but I never get to hear it. So, well, thank you.
Hey, Michael, I just got one last thing to say, if I can.
Yeah,
That's
go for
okay.
it. Yeah.
I know that people do want unity because I saw a very large group of men pull a very large, huge plane with a big rope calling for unity.
Amen to
And
that.
amen to that.
So now's the time where we can just start putting that positive energy out there and the prayers and the blessings to just have a real election and let voices be heard and seen. If that happens, I think it could be an absolute beautiful future. It doesn't have to be dark and gloomy, even though all the indicators point that direction. We can plan for, the counterbalance to that, which is really what decentralization can do. Bob, do you want to say something, bud?
No, I just express my ditto. I agree with, we're all here, want the same things, and that's love and peace and joy.
Amen to that. We had a little family council together, me and my three youngest boys, and it was basically just around that. We just want peace and joy and happiness, and it's amazing what family can do when that all comes together, and when we realize that we're really one big family on this amazing earth. And it's not just about an election within a particular country, even though that's driven around the world. But I don't know. Let's just have some hope, and we'll plan on seeing everybody in about a week. Much love, everyone. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Have fun. Have
Thank
fun
you.
with the debate.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, David. Or